Good morning, everyone. Let's start with universal invocation. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. Let's observe silence for a couple of moments. Okay, so good morning, everyone, again. So let's welcome Sister Subralina. She is the speaker for today, and Sister Subralina is the personality who needs no introduction among everyone because she has done so many theosophical works, TOS works, and she is a motivational speaker also, and she can inspire everyone. And Sister Subralina's journey started in TS in 2003. She became a member of Siddharth Lodge, Bhubaneswar, Utkal Theosophical Federation. Then she moved to Delhi in 2008 and subsequently moved her membership from Utkal Theosophical Federation to Delhi Theosophical Federation to Shankar Lodge, till she relocated to Ghaziabad, where she founded a new lodge, Prayas Lodge. And in December 2017, she started Prayas Lodge. The members of the lodge are mostly young children and youth for whom she conducts weekly meetings and also seminars, special study classes, and workshops time to time. During her membership of last 17 years, Subralina has also been an active TOS member working for poor and unprivileged children. She took charge of TOS Delhi region in 2016 as the regional secretary and has been dedicatedly working under the guidance of senior members of TOS. She is a firm believer of unity of life and leads life as a follower of natural laws and laws of karma, observing her own self with practical aspects of spiritual science of all her personal identities. She prefers to be a theosophist first. So let's welcome Sister Subralina.
Namaste. Thank you, Smita Pragya. Today I'm going to talk about a portion from the Key to Theosophy. And as assigned to me, I'll take up the headings, the difference between Theosophy and spiritualism and why Theosophy is accepted. So in the beginning, I would like to ponder upon the general ideas about spiritualism and Theosophy. Spiritualism is generally about higher principles, intellectual development. And as we all know, Theosophy is about ancient wisdom, exploring and understanding. I mean, not just blindly believing, living those higher values practically in our day-to-day life. If we consider this word spiritualism, this is derived from the word spiritual, and again, further from spirit. What is the spirit? Spirit is the third immortal factor in man, the other two being, as we know, body and soul. Spirit remains, whatever might happen to others. It has a deep state of consciousness, and as our inner growth proceeds, we will gradually become aware of that diviner self. Simply speaking, spirit is the vital principle within all beings, which remains as is. It doesn't change, no matter what happens to the bodies, the other bodies. So we can clearly see spirit is the permanent essence of every being, which is far apart from the impermanent matter or this material world. So in a sentence, we can probably conclude that which is of spirit is not materialistic, and that which is of material is not spiritual. I repeat, something which is of spirit is not materialistic, and something which is of material is not spiritual. We must think about it. The Greek word for spirit is pneuma. It refers to the part of man that connects and communicates with the Supreme. Our spirit differs from our soul because our spirit is always pointed toward and exists exclusively for Supreme, or the higher self as we call it. Whereas our soul sometimes can be self-centered. The joy, the comfort, and the peace of supreme power can only be experienced through our spirit. And it is a common understanding, maybe a common misunderstanding, I would say, that spirituality and spiritualism are the same things, but in reality, they are not. Spiritualism is a belief in a supreme power and other supernatural entities, and believing that a medium can channel those spirits from the spirit world into ourselves. Whereas spirituality, on the other hand, is a personal experience. It is a path that leads a person to know the reason of his existence. Spirituality often is the values and the moralities with which a person lives by. Since we are doing this discussion or this talk based on the portion from the Key to Theosophy, just to read out some of the portion from the book which is relevant here. This is, as you know, is a question answer book. So as per this question and answer in particular in this book, let me just read out. The divine spark in man being one and identical in its essence with the universal spirit. Our spiritual self is practically omniscient, but that it cannot manifest its knowledge owing to the impediments of matter. Now, the more these impediments are removed, in other words, the more the physical body is paralyzed as to its own independent activity and consciousness, like in deep sleep or deep trance, or again in illness sometimes, the more fully can the inner self manifest on this plane. As Madam Blavatsky says, this is our explanation of those truly wonderful phenomena of a higher order, in which undeniable intelligence and knowledge are exhibited. So more and more the impediments from the bodies are removed, the more and more we will spirit or the spiritual self. The world of after death is not a long way away. We all have been talking about it. You know, life after death. We know about the 7 bodies. We kind of keep living body by body, one by one. But the world of after death is not a long way away. It is all around us. It is composed of that fine and subtle psychic matter which permeates and surrounds this globe. Our soul or the psychic body is also composed of it, and it permeates and surrounds our physical counterparts. This can be seen by a certain order of psychic sight, which will be possessed by all of us one day, if not today. Then we will know that there is no such thing as death in this universe, only a continual change of state. I would refer about Swami Nigamananda's life story here. I hope most of you know about Swami Nigamananda Paramahansa. His initial name was Nalinikanta, and he was a Sadguru yogi, well known in eastern part of the country. Until he lost his wife, he had seen death as the ultimate end. Losing her led him to believe that there must be life after death. He has, the book about him talks about a lot of experiences he had. So he had his own theories and beliefs, and he had concluded that there is no life after death initially, but then started gradually believing that no, life must be there after death, this physical body's death. He became obsessed with this question. His inquiry took him to study theosophy at the Theosophical Society at Adyar. Through a medium, he was able to talk to his wife, but he remained unsatisfied. His discussions at the society led him to search for a yogi who could fulfill his desire to meet his dead wife and educate him in the true philosophy of life after death. So one night, he dreamt of a sadhu with a brilliant aura. He woke up to find the sadhu standing beside his bed. The sadhu handed him a bale leaf with a mantra written on it and then vanished. He asked many people to help him understand its meaning. Finally, he met Bhamakshepa, a famous tantric of Tarapith in Birbhum district. He took initiation from Bhamakshepa and was directed to chant this mantra, that particular mantra which that sadhu in his dream had given him. He started chanting this mantra for 21 days. After Bhamakshepa's guidance, he had physical darshan of Tara Devi in the form of his wife. This darshan led him to another mystery. He saw Tara Devi coming out of his body and mingling with him. To solve this mystery, Bhamakshepa advised him to attain the knowledge of Advaita from Vedantic Guru. So in 1902, he searched for a Jnani Guru. He met Guru Sachidanand Saraswati at the holy place of Pushkar in Rajasthan. He realized that Sachidanand Saraswati was none other than the same sadhu who had given him the Tara mantra in his dream. So Nalinikanta became his disciple and learned the theories of Brahma Sutras and Vedanta. He was initiated by Sachidananda into renunciation, and according to that principle, changed his name from Nalinikanta to Nigamananda. This is a practical experience happening with somebody who questions within himself, looks around, looks within, and then finds out his answer. Sometimes people say that they cannot believe that they have lived here before because they don't seem to have any personal memory of it. There are people who remember partially or completely sometimes, but most of us do not seem to. Sometimes in early childhood, memories come. But again, those memories are lost as the child grows up. So here this question arises, does memory mean only the mental pictures of past event? It really means we have already forgotten most of the life, even most of the present day. If we try to remember every thought, word, and deed of a day, we should not succeed. Yet each tiny event has made its impress upon our subconscious, and a series of like impressions produces a tendency in us. For example, a man who plays a musical instrument, he plays it well, but he probably doesn't remember the times he practiced, but his subconscious does and gives the memory back to him. It comes as a developed capacity or power. Thus, our capacities of today's life are actually our past memories. So are our likings, our dislikings, sometimes even our phobias. fear of something, water, fire, or height, or whatever. Even certain period of history seem to attract us greatly, as if we were there as a part of that history. We get so much attracted to a personality, to an event, as if we have lived that life. Strong liking, strong disliking events. There are people, when revisit their land of their former birth, have a strange familiarity with the beings, with the themes, with the surroundings. This mysterious sense of recollection and intuitive understanding of unknown people are examples of remembering our past lives. Another good example would be, you would have read the English poet Keats. Though he was an England's poet, he possessed by nature that unique feeling for life, which was actually kind of a Greek temperament. So mostly he would explain things like a Greek, not like an English. The wonder at one seizes if we presume that Keats is the reincarnation of a Greek poet, and that he is remembering his past lives as he reverts to Greek ways of thought and feeling. It could happen with most of us. We are born in a particular family, but sometimes we're attracted to a different tradition, different thought process. So it's a matter of question. There is life everywhere. Though it exists in different grades, even in what we regard as dead, inert matter, consciousness is inherent in life. The more and more we observe it, life, death, again life, the whole cycle will be clear to us. And through this, we'll realize what is permanent, what is impermanent, what is that is not dying, what is coming in my consciousness, what is that is coming again and again, and what is that is going forever. All those questions we should ponder over. In man, only that consciousness has developed to a degree, and also in directions which enable him to be conscious of himself and what he is in himself. Because of this development, he can know certain truths pertaining to his own nature, own psychic nature, own spiritual nature. He can delve into consciousness and discover or rediscover even the true nature of himself. Its whole spectrum from the dead end of matter to that end, which is the beginning in the life of the spirit. So spirit and matter have such a good relationship if we could look at it. Whatever we are experiencing, if we start looking at the essence of it, not just the materialistic part of it, we would probably get into some facts of things, the inner truths. And we may extend this concept to the entire universe. So while my petty life is having some experience, some expression, and I start connecting to the world around me, surrounding me, starting from my family to the society, community, country, the whole world. If I extend this concept to the entire universe is an expression of an omnipresent energy, and that is this one life. The potential which constitutes every being's essence, we name it the spirit, is the opposite pole to matter and exists as a unity. This spirit is reflected in matter, is manifesting itself in manifold forms. And it's like, it's in the center and there is a peripheral thing happening. The spirit sends out infinite rays which constitute the soul of every form. So there is this universal spirit which is, touching upon the individual souls surrounding it. Though one form differs from another, everybody is looking so different. Then we say, no, there is one life flowing in everything, every being. The indwelling life is one and also many. One from the standpoint of the spirit, which is at the center, many and probably different in different forms from the standpoint of matter or expression. So when it is spirit, it's uniquely standing up there. The more and more it's manifolding and, taking different shapes, from the standpoint of matter, it looks very different. And this one has become many. So the many can also re-become one. a deep and all-comprehending view can take in whatever is true in any philosophy, religion, science, from wherever we look at it. Science approaches each thing in the universe from outside, from a distance, and it keeps on recording observations to further establish theories to explain those facts. What does philosophy do? Philosophy works on the plane of the mind and examines the validity of all mental experiences. Religion is concerned with deeper type of these experiences, and it formulates theories and it explains and people adapt to it. There is nothing our experience to build upon, and all experiences ground for study. In theosophy, we study science, philosophy, and religion. Theosophy, as the word indicates, as we all call it every time, it's divine wisdom. And we can have some concept only in so far as it is coming within our purview. We have to bring it in our purview, then only we'll realize. So for our purposes, it may be defined as the wisdom declared in all things in nature, a wisdom which must have a relations to the things we observe and to our practical experience of life. We must look at it. What is going on? What is being static? What is moving? What is not getting destroyed? If I give an example of a classroom, let's say, in a single day, there is a blackboard in the classroom. Teachers after teachers come into the class. Every teacher is approaching to the blackboard. He or she is explaining different subjects. Each teacher is coming and writing on the blackboard different words, different symbols, which is representing the particular subject he is teaching, particular design of knowledge he is going to portray. And again, a different teacher comes, he wipes out the blackboard and writes something different as per his subject. So what is remaining the same? The blackboard. Students are leaving the classroom, new teachers are coming in the classroom. So same blackboard is taking things from one person, it is wiped out and it is absorbing one more thing. So, if you could, I know it's a very different kind of an example, but if you kind of look at it, the same blackboard, which is absorbing things, but then somebody comes and wipes out, it again is, kind of black, it's blank, it's ready to absorb more things. And the blackboard is not changing. So many impressions are coming on it. The changing world of unmanifest has one changeless substratum. The principle of pure consciousness is not perceivable by the sense organs or even mind and intellect. We can't comprehend it. What happens? Life after life, the souls come to birth, live life of selfishness mostly, die, and there is any change hardly noticeable. And interestingly, everybody has so much of dissatisfaction. Now coming to the same book, I'll again take up a few more paragraphs from the same book. As HPB says, we say that in such cases, it is not the spirits of the dead who descend on earth, but the spirits of the living that ascend to the pure spiritual souls. In truth, there is neither ascending nor descending, but only a change of state or condition for the medium. Referring to the answer in this book again, though our teachings insist upon the identity of spirit and matter, and though we say that spirit is potential matter and matter is simply crystallized spirit, yet since the original and eternal condition of all is not spirit but metaspirit, so to speak, we maintain that the term spirit can only be applied to the true individuality. Again, the book continues to answer some beautiful part of the questions. While answering the question, what is the distinction between true individuality and the I or ego of which we all are conscious? HPB states, we distinguish between the simple fact of self-consciousness, the simple feeling that I am I, and the complex thought that I am Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so, believing as we do in a series of births for the same ego or reincarnation, this distinction is the fundamental pivot of the whole idea. You see, Mr. So-and-so really means a long series of daily experiences strung together by the thread of memory. But none of these experiences are really the I or the ego. Nor do they give Mr. So-and-so the feeling that he is in himself, for he forgets the greater part of his daily experiences. And they produce the feeling of egoity in him, only while they last. We distinguish between the bundle of experiences, which we call the false personality, and that element in man to which the feeling of I am I is due. It is this I am I, which we call the true individuality, and we say individualities plays like an actor many parts on the stage of life. So who's the true I? I am so-and-so. Suvralina, I'm not Suvralina. Let's say, for example, my name is Suvralina. Suvralina is my name. I know it sounds very absurd when we talk like this, but the more and more we objectively look at it. I am a daughter, I am a wife, I am a mother, I am a professional. We keep on going saying that I am so-and-so, but who is the real I? Let us call every new life on earth of the same ego a night on the stage of a theater. We are just playing the roles of that, and who's the true I? That is a big question. An actor playing a part of a king in a play can never completely forget that he has a family, he has a home to go back after the play. And if he forgets his identity and acts as a king, even outside the stage, he will be segregated and moved to a lunatic asylum. He is efficient as the actor because he constantly remembers his own real identity. What a good example. Similarly, even with continuous cognition of our divine nature, we can act in the world without any hindrance and thereby add a glow to our achievements and soften the reactions of any disappointments that we might meet within life's pilgrimage. A truly educated man never forgets his education. It becomes part and parcel of his very nature, and in every thought, word, action of his, he brings out the fragrance of his education. Similarly, the man of constant awareness will act in the world, all his actions soaked in selflessness, all his thoughts flavored with love, all his feelings matured with kindness. He will be every moment, every time he'll be alert, aware. There is a deep purpose in nature, which is the unfoldment of what is within, the things of the hidden nature in them. In this unfoldment, there is joy, there is creation, there is beauty. If a rose fades and its petals crumble, fall into the dust, life of that rose has not therefore ceased to be. That life persists in nature. It retains in itself all the memories of all the experiences which it gained as a rose. And then in due course of events, following laws of all nature, which are comprehensible, that life animates another rose and in another spring, bringing to its second embodiment. And it also carries the memories of the first. We still call the new rose a rose. Whenever there seems the death of a living thing, crystal, plant, animal, man, there always persists an indestructible life and consciousness. We must maintain that divine consciousness constantly, continuously, daily. Now coming to the second part of this portion, which I'm touching upon today, why is theosophy accepted? So far we understand spirit, matter, permanence, impermanence. Now let us understand, why is theosophy accepted? Why does one man have everything in his favor and another so little that sometimes we say, poor fellow, he never had a chance from the very beginning? The truth is that in the great family of humanity, just as in the smaller units we all belong to, no one is of the same soul age. Some have lived here many more times in the school of life than others. And so they have more in them, more insight, more wisdom, self-control, capacity. The ignorant or evil man is actually a younger soul. Life's experiences, sometimes bitter and tragic, will teach him the great laws of life and develop his latent capacities. Reality can dawn upon us when our horizons are clear and when we are ready for it. It is there and shines all the time, but it will shine upon us only when we turn ourselves around in order to receive the light. Everywhere, one will find changes in the forms or evolution taking place, from elemental to human being. We have been studying it, experimenting it since the time we have been studying theosophy. Not only the evolution of forms, but unfoldment of life is taking place within the forms. The uniqueness of such changes is the unchangeable divine spark within the forms, whether it is mineral, plant, animal, human being. Theosophy says, in every form, whether mineral, plant, animal, human being, contains within it that divine spark, which involves potentiality of development. So merely an outer change is not enough. There has to be a fundamental change. The choice is with the individual to inquire, to think, to learn, and to see what is acceptable to him for the time being. Theosophy teaches us that the purpose of our life is spiritual emancipation. And it claims that the human soul undergoes reincarnation upon bodily death according to a process of karma. It doesn't happen on its own accord. There is a law by which it is avoided. Law of karma, it really works. That is why we are so particular about karma and reincarnation in our literature, even in our practices. It promotes values of universal brotherhood and social improvement, although it doesn't speculate particular ethical codes. Spirituality is the ultimate goal of all religion. We know it. Practices for reading the above goal lead to different religions. That's why there are, different religions, different theories of life, different, ways of doing it. But the ultimate goal is that same thing. These religions are manifested through rituals, dogmas, and beliefs. All religions seek attainment of spirituality, though. Institutionalization of religion is done by interpretation of a philosophy through this religion. See, truth is the one, same thing, but approaches are different. As we previously discussed, religion has a mystical approach and philosophy has a speculative approach. Science has experimental approach. Theosophy encourages the study of comparative religion, philosophy, and science. And in accordance with the theosophical spirit, most theosophists regard truth as a prize to be striven for, not as a dogma to be imposed by any authority. Authority implies imitation, to follow. Where there is confusion, there is misery, people turn to authority. And that's why we don't look into ourselves to find out for ourselves what is true. We just follow. Whereas, what should be the beginning? The beginning should be self-knowledge. How can a petty mind, a narrow mind, a mind that is begotten through fear, through imitation, through authority, try to find out what is supreme? So beginning to understand ourselves as we are is the beginning of the wisdom. The beginning of seeing what the fact actually is without distortion of the fact of what we are, not the idea of what we should be. What has meaning and significance is the fact and what we are every day, not what we should be. We are so much concerned about it should be like this, it should be like this, we should behave like this. We never look at ourselves, what we actually are. We go very distant from the facts. Ideas are always great, but if we forget facts, if I don't accept what am I actually, how am I going to change? How am I going to improve myself? I would always be in an idealistic state. I will never get a chance to look at me courageously, fearlessly. When we observe ourselves very clearly, when we are aware choicelessly of every thought, of every feeling, then we will come upon something which is clear. The freedom is within, in understanding of the self. I would like to conclude with the 3 truths which you should keep reminding ourselves, because that is what Theosophy has given us and which we abide by. So not just by quoting it, but actually, truly living it will help us. What are these 3 truths? The soul of man is immortal, and its future is the future of a thing whose growth and splendor has no limit. The principle which gives life dwells in us, and without us is undying and eternally beneficent, is not heard or seen or smelt, but is perceived by the man who desires perception. Each man is his own absolute lawgiver, the dispenser of glory or gloom to himself, the decreer of his life, his reward, his punishment. Spirituality as the self, every one of us is all full and perfect. Due to our ignorance of spiritual experience, we entertain in our intellectual desires. There is unending desire. The texture and quality of our thoughts are directly controlled by our desires. Our thoughts become our actions. Thus, in the chain of ignorance, constituted of desires, thoughts, and actions, each one of us is caught and bound. Every individual sounds his note as part of the keynote of the whole world, and his note is in harmony with the universal plan. His whole being evolves in the direction of the goal to be attained. So he continues his journey as a learner till the end. That is the temple of divine wisdom. And that is why we accept Theosophy wholeheartedly. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Subralina. And you explained everything very simplified way. And this talk was so nice, and it was so overwhelming as always. So, okay, we will, if anybody has any questions or anything, we will discuss now. So.
Hello, I'm Sheetal Gole. I just want to say, I love you, Subralina. You are awesome. So clarity in the thoughts, you give us in our understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. People who have read this book thoroughly might give some more clarity if I have left out something, because I, honestly speaking, only read the portions I was assigned to. I haven't read the whole book. So maybe, there is some pre-text or post-text to it. Senior people, senior brothers probably could touch upon, so that, the audience can get some more knowledge.
Ma'am, I just joined 5 minutes late. So can I know the topics on what you just given the discourse?
Yes, this was spiritualism, Theosophy. I mean, difference between spiritualism and Theosophy, and why Theosophy is accepted. This is a book called The Key to Theosophy. people who have read it full, they would be knowing much more than what I explained. I just touched upon one portion of it. I definitely go back and read the whole book.
But you have explained so simply and given us the correct understanding. I love it. Thank you.
Sister Surinamanti, we had a very nice talk. Thank you. I am from Visakhapatnam.
Thank you, sir. Since all of us are members of Theosophy, I think, instead of maybe questioning or answering, we could probably, if we have time, we can probably say either a single word or a single sentence why Theosophy is accepted. I think that will be a good collection of thoughts from everyone, why Theosophy is accepted. Smita Pragya, what do you say as a young member?
As per my knowledge, what I think, might not be right, but I think that Theosophy is accepted because of its freedom of thought and our objectives, like to accept all the, to study all the religions and to know everything, and to study the religions and philosophy and science, so that we will not discriminate. We will understand all the religions. We will understand what they say. What is the essence of all the religions? There is nothing like bias thing, like I am Hindu means I should believe on Krishna, Rama, or if I'm Christian, then I'll only follow Jesus Christ. It's not like that. Because we can follow anyone, we can live like them, not speak like them, but we need to live like them. So because of that, Theosophy is accepted, I feel.
Yes, that's so nice. Can our senior members please touch upon this question, why Theosophy is accepted? I think that will be a good collection of thoughts.
What I think, Madam Namaskar.
Namaskar.
What I think, Theosophy is a science. Actually, we can acquire the real knowledge from Theosophy. Irrespective of any religion, we can accept and we can acquire the correct knowledge, which is very much scientific and proper. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Theosophy is the art of life.
That's so practical view of. Is it Mitalini Didi?
Please come with video. Please come with video.
That's really nice. Sheetal ma'am, you have been a member for quite some time, quite a good number of years. What do you think? आपको क्यों लगता है Theosophy is accepted? Why it is accepted? आप म्यूट पे हैं.
थियोसॉफी हमें खुद को जानने का, नो दाई सेल्फ का चांस देती है, और ये जो लिटरेचर्स है, ये हमें कैसे जानना है इसके बारे में कीज बताते हैं, और इससे हमें जानने के लिए जो मदद मिलती है, उसके लिए मुझे थियोसॉफी अच्छी लगती है.
Very nice. Smita Pragyan, do you see more young members? Maybe we can hear from them. The more we learn from others, the more.
Yeah, let me check. Sorry to, but those who are not speaking, please mute yourself.
Somebody was trying to say something.
I am Ashok Mahapatra. I would like to say something, not exactly on the subject you said, but kindly see.
Kindly video on kariye. Just on your video.
Video. Can't you hear me?
Yes, we are hearing you, but you make your video on so that people all over India will see you.
That will take time. Now let me continue. Let me continue. That will take 2 minutes. The book, what is important about Blavatsky, that his books are dedicated to specific people. Now, this book is dedicated by HPV to all her pupils that they may learn and credit and teach in their turn. Now, if you see, secret doctrine is dedicated to some kind of people. Practical occultism is dedicated to other type of people. So, when you see this dedication, we must know that this book is essentially meant for studying and then teaching. And that is exactly what you did. So that is what I wanted to drive home. That this book is meant for studying and also for teaching. That is how this book has been written. And that is why it is on question and answer form.
Right.
So that is a point one must keep in view. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
मैडम.
Yes, sir.
स्वर्णिना मैडम.
Yeah.
एम्पैथी के बारे में ये बोलना चाहता हूँ. सबसे पहले तो हमारे को जानना है कि हम किस लिए, मकसद क्या है हमारे जीने का. और हम लोग संसारी बातों में इतना लीन हो जाते हैं कि हम भूल ही जाते कि हमारे करना क्या है. तो हमारा कोई लक्ष्य होना चाहिए. उस लक्ष्य के ऊपर कम से कम इस जन्म में पहुंचना तो मुश्किल है, लेकिन ये जो हम हो रहे इसके अलावा भी कोई और जगत है. उस जगत के बारे में जानने का प्रयास और ये कंटिन्यू प्रोसेस है. तो धीरे धीरे पहुंचेंगे. कोशिश करना है हमें, ऐसा मुझे लगता है.
Very true, sir.
I want to ask something.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you see, I'm totally lost. So I don't understand the basics of theosophy. If you think that this will not be of general interest, you may not answer this. I'll try to find out the answer myself. My question, I am lost in the sense. I am lost in the sense that I am trying to figure out. There is spiritualism, there is religion, there is theosophy, there is philosophy. So what is the distinction means between all those things? I am not to relate all these things, all these concepts. So the difference or how they relate to each other. So I am stuck at this very basics of the whole thing. So I think clarifying the basics would help to assimilate the further discussions, the deeper points on the topic. So I was thinking whether I should ask this because, so if you think this would be of interest to the entire group, you may discuss that. Otherwise, I can.
Yeah, I think it is of interest to this group. See, basically, when we say a particular religion, it has its own belief system, it has its own rituals. Every religion, we are born in a Hindu family, somebody else is born in a Islam family, Christianity, Zoroastrianism, Sikh and all. So we follow certain things, sometimes even without questioning why we are doing it. There must be a very meaningful and a beautiful message of doing everything. But the very moment we are aware of why we are doing it, that will give us the essence back. That is number one. I mean, I'm talking from a point of view of a layman, from a child, from a man who's questioning. Theosophy gives us the freedom to look within things without any biasness. without any authority, because it is written somewhere and somebody else has said it, so I must just go and follow it. I, as a human being with my own consciousness, has got all the rights to know the inner of things. That is one basic parameter which is set for theosophists who could look within things. And interestingly, we have this potential to bring out the essence of it. We are so full of potential. This is even one of our objectives. The 3 objectives of theosophy, first being universal brotherhood. See, look at the essence of it. Such a beautiful object. I do not have to argue because I'm Hindu, I'm not going to do this. I'm not even think like it. No, I have got all the rights to look everything holistically. I have got all rights to accept things. मुझे दूसरे को एक्सेप्ट करना है, मुझे टॉलरेट करना है. जब तक मैं बेसिक टॉलरेंस को एक्सेप्ट नहीं कर पा रही हूँ, मैं दूसरे धर्म क्या, मैं तो दूसरे बंदे को एक्सेप्ट नहीं कर पा रही हूँ. इन प्रैक्टिकली, क्योंकि ये बंदा मेरी तरह नहीं सोच पाता है, मेरी तरह बोल नहीं पाता है, मेरी तरह इसके इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, so he is different, I am different, and I am not able to see what is that common thread joining me, that very life which is common in me and the other person. Forget about universal brotherhood. हमारे अंदर वो बेसिक टॉलरेंस नहीं है. फिर हम घर में झगड़ते हैं, हम धर्म के नाम पे झगड़ते हैं, हम इंटरेस्ट, लाइकिंग्स, डिसलाइकिंग्स को लेके ग्रुपिज्म बनाते हैं, एंड वी कॉल दैट वी वुड बी अ पार्ट ऑफ द यूनिवर्स. नो, प्रैक्टिकली अगर ये सोचे हम. दूसरा हमारा जो है कि हर चीज को होलिस्टिकली देखना है. इसलिए हमें सिर्फ साइंटिफिकली नहीं देखना है, ना कि फिलोसॉफी कुछ कह गई है तो उसी को देखना है, या रिलीजियस कुछ ऑथराइज्ड कुछ चीजें हैं, ठप्पा लग गया उसको देखना, ऐसा नहीं है. लेट अस गो एंड इंटरवेन, लेट अस लुक एट इट, कंपैरेटिवली पढ़ें, स्टडी करें. मैंने अपने बच्चों का एक कैंप करा था, अभी मैं उसके ऊपर और एक समर कैंप में कराऊंगी. आई हैड टेकन सम बुक्स ऑफ ऑल रिलीजन्स, इट्स स्टिल लाइंग इन माय लाइब्रेरी. मैंने 6-7 रिलीजन के पतले पतले बुक्स लिए थे. जब उसको एक्चुअली बच्चों को पढ़ने के लिए दिया, मैंने अलग अलग दिया था. मैंने सबको बोला कि आप अपने आप पढ़ के उसका एसेंस लेके आना. ऐसे नहीं कि मैंने इसको करा, बच्चों ने कराया, जिनको कभी हमने इस तरह के थ्योरी में डाला ही नहीं था. फॉरगेट अबाउट थियोसॉफी की बेसिक्स भी नहीं बताया था जब हमने उनको. सब बच्चे जब प्रेजेंट करने लगे, द लैंग्वेज एंड द वर्ड्स वर डिफरेंट, द मीनिंग वाज सेम, एंड बच्चों को अपने आप में ब्यूटीफुली लगा. हाँ, सिख यही कहता है, इस्लाम यही कहता है, क्रिश्चियनिटी यही कहता है, एंड इट इज सो इजी फॉर द किड्स टू एक्सेप्ट इट. क्योंकि वो बच्चे हैं, उन्होंने बहुत जल्दी एक्सेप्ट कर लिया. हम लोग कंडीशनड हो गए हैं, हमें इतने सालों से कुछ एक तरीके से करा है, एंड वी आर नॉट एबल टू चैलेंज इट. थियोसॉफी एक प्लेटफॉर्म है जो हमें उन सब क्वेश्चन को सदियों से करते आए हुए चीजों को चैलेंज करने का भी.
डिफरेंस बिटवीन स्पिरिचुअलिज्म एंड theosophy.
Suvarnalena.
Yeah.
Suvarnalena.
Yes, sir.
Let me explain to him.
Sure.
Sir.
Hello. You have asked about the science, religion, and philosophy.
No, just deal with one at a time. Spiritualism and theosophy.
Spirituality and theosophy.
Ji,
see,
sir.
What is spirituality after all? Spirituality is to become good. Good means unselfish. We are selfish. We have to become unselfish. This is very simple, because we all are selfish. We are all alike in selfishness. Selfishness won't go in one life, but if we try, it will go on reducing life after life, or even day after day. So, spiritualism is to become unselfish. This simple sentence we can remember and carry on tread the path of spirituality. What I am going to tell, I am a science person. How can I look theosophy from the point of view of science? In science, we speak about matter and energy, energy and matter. Sometimes nowadays we are speaking about consciousness. Chitta, we have entered into that consciousness, and still we are grubbing about the consciousness, but we never speak about the spirit. What is this spirit? We don't have the spirit of discovery, spirit of invention, spirit of sports, in sport, all this. This one spirit which is within us, we never think of it in science. Rather, we just not neglecting, but not speaking about it. We are silent about spirit. So Theosophy says it is the science of spirit. Go beyond the matter and energy and consciousness, then you come to that spirit. So we can take it to science as the Theosophy as the science of spirit. We also speak about the, what we say, we are not perfect. Human beings are not perfect. Because I don't have the voice of Lata Mangeshkar. My voice is not perfect. Probably Lata Mangeshkar is more towards the perfection. So I immediately accept there is possibility of having voice faculty evolved up to the Lata Mangeshkar or beyond that also. So like this, there is a process of perfection. And that kind of philosophy, Theosophy accepts. Theosophy is the philosophy of perfection. Day by day, by experience, we become more and more perfect in our hidden or potential faculties. So in this way, we look at philosophy as the philosophy of perfection. As Theosophy, we also look at religion. As Swarnalina very nicely said, she gave to study every students of different religions, and they came with the result that every religion is saying the same truth. So if it is so, what we Theosophists look at the religion, it is the religion which is the religion means dharma. Is it not? Dharma means duty. And our duty is our responsibility. As Swarnalina said, the last truth, you are your own master. You get it perfected. So as a religion, we accept it is Theosophy is the religion of responsibility. I have my own responsibility. I am the world. What world is, that I am. What I am is the world is. That is what Krishnamurti's statement says. So in this sense, please understand this. Theosophy or in the light of Theosophy, we look at both science, philosophy, and religion as the synthesis. Now even evolution is coming to this synthetic theory. So I think if we look at Theosophy with this attitude, I think we can understand more and more deep meaning. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I hope I have made little clear to him. Who is Mohanty, Chanda Mohanty? Are you all right? Is it all right, sir?
Thank
Mohanty?
you, sir. Sir, another question just came to mind. So, how do you differentiate between soul and spirit? I say my soul, my spirit. So I'm trying to distinguish. Then comes spirituality. Maybe it will help to clarify that. So, mind and body clear. We say mind, body, soul, and spirit. So are the same thing, or there is some distinction between the two, soul and spirit?
It is like spirit is infinite. We can't speak about it. Say it is beyond. What is infinite? If you are a science student, what is infinite? That is also we cannot say. So like infinite, how can we say spirit? Because human consciousness is not capable to catch that. And therefore it is instructed to those who are practicing or studying deeply the Theosophy. They must desire that which is beyond. And we are imagining and extending our power of imagination to that which is beyond mind and soul. So beyond mind and soul, as it is said in 7 planes, spirit is at the atmic level. We can reach up to the buddhic level only. And sometimes flashes may come and that may give insight. Probably you can think of that one. That is why Krishnamurti says, don't imagine much. What is here, you just see. So as you have asked, it is very difficult to tell or define spirit. It is infinite. It is said, Satyam Shivam Sundaram. It is all truth, beautiful, and also we can't word it. I think, Mohanty, probably we can imagine, but imagination is the very good faculty of human consciousness. So always desire that which is beyond your capacity. Then one day you will reach to that beyond.
Sir, what I understood, spirit is a bigger entity than soul.
Of course, of course, of course. Right, you have understood. Yeah, you can imagine like this. You can say spirit is God also. What is God also, we don't know.
The way I try to perceive God, God is a concept. You just try to understand it, visualize it. It's intangible.
It is concept because we made it as an idol. So go beyond that concept also. It is indefinable truth. Okay, it goes unending question and answer about the spirit. We can't speak much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
One more. What I understand means the understanding I developed from this discussion. Soul is something, mind and body you will know. Soul is something, I can feel it. I can feel it in my heart. I can feel that if I do a good thing, my soul feels good. I can feel it in some way. So, is there any feeling for spirit, or it's just totally intangible?
In that sense, you then think spirit, soul, and body. You know spirit, you don't know spirit, but you have touched the soul, and you know your body. Body is functioning up to the, you are thinking, you are feeling, you are acting. That is all body. And soul is something.
I just remembered one thing, Subralina. We come from the same high school in Puri, both of us from Puri.
Very nice.
Subralina told that about her school children project religion. I remember something. Abraham Lincoln wrote a letter to the headmaster of the school where he sent his son. He wrote to the headmaster, "Sir, please teach my boy not to sell his soul. That's all I need from you."
Yeah.
So spirit goes beyond that.
Spirit goes beyond.
That's what I tell people, that is the meaning of education. If the student learns not to sell his soul for whatever cause.
Yes. So soul is the body of spirit. Soul is the body of spirit. And our what I say, my body,
or
what
maybe
I
we
think,
can
what
say,
I feel, what I act, it is the body of the soul.
Or we may say,
just listen. What I am to convey you. We have soul body to work in the physical, in the space and time limit. We have also soul body to work in the beyond space and time. So that is why you are recognizing something of soul, but you are not recognizing something of that spirit, because we have to be with the soul, and soul is the body through which we can touch to the spirit. And this body, what we say, physical, emotional, and mental, is the body for soul to work on physical plane, whereas soul is the body to work on subtler plane or spiritual plane. This we can understand. So if you be linked with the soul, then you can work on the spiritual plane. We say spiritual plane, not the spirit. So spiritual plane, you can be able to work if you link with yourself with the soul, what Swarlina told.
Okay. We can observe 1 minute silence before Smita Pragya closes the session, because silence is part of observing things. Yeah.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sister Suvralina. Thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone, for joining and make this session a very full session. Thank you so much. And the session is closed.
Thank you, Suvralina. Thank you.
Request Mitalini.
I am happy that even at the age of 60, I am still learning.
Okay. I request Sister Mitalini to close with the closing prayer.
Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasuma Jyotirkamaya Yutturmang Amrutangamaya Sarve Vai Sukhina Santu Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Na Kaschit Dukhabhag Bhave. Om